My name is Brandy Brewer, and I'm 33 years old. For most of my life, I thought distance could protect me from the family that raised me, a family where love always came with conditions, and where I learned very early that being the eldest daughter meant being invisible. These days, I live a quiet, modest life with my boyfriend Liam and our 6-year-old daughter Ellie. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant, but peaceful. Peace was something I'd had to build myself from scratch, one boundary at a time. Growing up, peace didn't exist in the Brewer household. My mother Marlene ruled with a perfectly manicured iron fist. My father George echoed her decisions like a loyal shadow. And then there was my younger sister Amanda, 5 years my junior, and endlessly adored. She wasn't just the golden child, she was the sun, and the rest of us were expected to orbit around her. Mom used to call her our miracle baby, a phrase that floated through our home like a perfume I was allergic to. Amanda could throw tantrums that rattled windows, and Mom would coo, "She's sensitive." If I cried, "Brandy, stop overreacting. You're older. Be mature." By the time I was a teenager, I'd become good at disappearing quiet helper straight A. Student never asking for anything. I thought if I stayed small enough, behaved well enough, maybe they'd see me. Maybe they'd love me the way they loved her. They didn't. The day after I turned 18, I packed my things into 2 bags and walked out of that house without looking back. College felt like fresh air after years of suffocation. I met Liam in my sophomore year, steady, thoughtful, gentle, in all the ways my upbringing was not. He was the first person who looked at me like I mattered, without asking for something in return. We built a life together, a good one, and we kept my family at enough distance that the old patterns couldn't touch us. Birthdays, holidays, the occasional tense call, that was it. It was safer that way. But quiet never lasts forever, especially not with my family. It began last year after my parents retired. They kept the same 2-story house I grew up in, nothing special, but fully paid off. I hadn't given that house a thought in over a decade, until suddenly my parents were calling more often. At first it was harmless. "How's Ellie? You should come for dinner sometime. Bring Liam, we haven't seen him in ages." I should have known better. But part of me, the small, foolish child still living inside the grown woman, thought maybe time had softened them. Maybe they wanted connection, reconciliation. Spoiler, they didn't. One night, Liam and I were having dinner at their place when Marlene announced casually, as if talking about the weather, "We're making arrangements for the future." Her smile was tight practiced, the kind she used when delivering bad news dressed as kindness. I asked what that meant. "Oh," she said lightly, "just making sure Amanda is taken care of." I nodded, assuming it meant a small trust fund or helping with her rent. Amanda had always been a mess job hopping dating men who couldn't spell commitment, calling my parents every other week to bail her out of some crisis. It was her pattern. But 3 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mailbox. A physical letter, certified, signed by both my parents. The kind of formality people use when they plan to deny what they said later. Inside the letter stated that they were transferring ownership of the house to Amanda, and that due to family equity distribution, I was being given 30 days' notice to vacate the premises. I stood in my kitchen, rereading the line over and over, waiting for it to make sense. Vacate the premises. I didn't live there. I hadn't lived there since I was 18. When I called my mother, she cut me off mid-sentence. "30 days is more than generous, Brandy. You'll need to make arrangements quickly." My voice cracked. "Mom, I don't live there. I haven't in 15 years. She exhaled, sharply annoyed. "You don't have to pretend. Times must be hard, but Amanda needs stability, and the house is a family asset." "Mom," I whispered, breathless, "I own my own home. Liam and I have a mortgage. My name isn't on anything related to your house." There was a long pause, static humming tension. Then, with chilling dismissiveness, she said, "Well, then you shouldn't be so concerned." And she hung up. I stood there, frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, as Liam approached, concern etched on his face. "What happened? What did she say?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't understand it myself. Why pretend I lived there? Why fabricate a reason to push me out? Why lie so deliberately? 2 days later, the answer arrived on my doorstep wearing sunglasses, heels, and a $900 handbag. Amanda. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She didn't even acknowledge Ellie, who peeked from behind Liam's leg. "You should start packing," Amanda said matter-of-factly. "Mom and Dad said you might be difficult, so I'm here now." Liam stepped forward. His tone was calm, but his eyes were fire. "I'm sorry. What exactly do you think Brandy needs to pack?" Amanda rolled her eyes so hard I could practically hear them scrape. The house, obviously. I'm not going to argue, Brandy. I'm being nice, giving you time. I stared at her stunned. Amanda, we don't live there. We haven't for years. She blinked, actually confused. Wait, seriously? Yes, seriously. A flicker of doubt crossed her face only for a second. Well, she finally said, flipping her hair over her shoulder, I already told my boyfriend we're moving in. So, either way, I'm getting that house. She smirked, turned, and sauntered back to her car. As she drove away, something cold settled inside my chest. A knowing, a promise. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. This was the beginning of something ugly, something deliberate. And my sister had just declared war. If betrayal had a sound, it wouldn't be loud. It would be quiet, like a click, a scratch, a form submitted without your knowledge. The first sign wasn't a scream, it was silence. After Amanda left our doorstep with that smug little smirk, I expected my parents to at least follow up with a call, an explanation, even a flimsy excuse. But there was nothing. No texts, no voicemails, not even one of Mom's passive-aggressive emojis that never meant what she said they meant. Just silence. A week passed before the next blow landed. I was folding laundry when Liam called me from work, his voice tight. Brandy, did you forward our mail? Like to your parents' house. I frowned. No. Why? Because we just got a confirmation letter from the county. Apparently our change of address has been approved. My blood ran cold. What? That's impossible. Not unless someone forged your name. He was right. I dropped Ellie off with Liam's sister and drove straight to the county clerk's office. The building smelled like old paper and cheap floor cleaner, and I sat under flickering fluorescent lights for nearly an hour before being called up. The clerk typed in my information, frowned, then rotated her monitor toward me. Is this your signature? My heart thudded painfully. It wasn't my signature. It wasn't even a good fake. Someone had tried to copy my handwriting, but it looked childish, uneven, almost like someone had practiced from memory rather than reference. Typed neatly above the fake signature my parents' address, and below it, crystal clear, Amanda Brewer's signature. Real, smug, undeniable. We'll need you to file a fraud and identity theft report, the clerk said quietly. This is serious. Someone intentionally rerouted your legal residence. It felt like stepping inside a nightmare where every door led deeper down. When I got home, things spiraled fast. First, the internet disconnected. Then the water bill came with a final notice stamp. Then Liam walked into the kitchen holding a gas company notice addressed to my parents' house. That's it, he said, jaw clenched. Someone is shutting down everything tied to our address. But the worst came from Ellie's school. Her principal called that afternoon. Brandy, we're so sorry, but Ellie's enrollment has been flagged. Someone reported she no longer lives in our district. Reported? Someone reported us. I didn't need to guess who. That night, I sat in the car for 15 minutes before walking inside, trying to breathe normally, trying to think. Trying not to scream. My hands shook as I dialed my mother. She answered in a bright voice. Brandy, so nice to hear from you. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Stop the games, I said evenly. You changed our mailing address. Someone shut off our utilities. Someone tried to get Ellie kicked out of school. There was a pause, then a sigh, dripping with fake sympathy. Well, if you aren't actually living at that address anymore, people will get confused. You know we live here, I said. You've been inside our home. More silence. Then softly, but with razor edges, Amanda needs the house more than you do. You're an adult, Brandy. You and Liam are supposed to provide for yourselves. Amanda, she doesn't have the same opportunities. She has every opportunity, I snapped. You've given her everything her whole life. Mom hesitated, then delivered the punch like she'd been practicing it. She's going to be a mother, Brandy. I went still. What? She's pregnant. She and her boyfriend are starting a family. They need a stable home. You've already had your chance. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The room tilted. Don't make this harder, she continued. You never had a claim to the house. This is what's best for the family. Click. She hung up. I stared at the dead phone in my hand until Liam gently took it from me. We need a lawyer, he said. We found one the next day. He was kind, calm, and honest, 3 things I wasn't prepared for. Yes, the forged address form is serious, he said, but proving who did it will take time. Legally, they're not trying to seize your actual home. They're manufacturing a narrative. It's harassment, very calculated harassment. That word harassment settled over me like a shroud. Because it wasn't just harassment, it was a coordinated dismantling of my life. Later that night, Liam and I sat together on the couch after putting Ellie to bed. They're tearing everything apart, he said, over a house we don't even want. No, I whispered, this isn't about a house. This is about erasing me. Days passed. We repaired what we could, restored utilities, refiled. Our address informed Ellie's school locked down accounts, plugging leaks in a boat someone else kept drilling holes into. I thought maybe the storm would calm. I was wrong. It got worse. My father called out of nowhere. "Hey, sweetheart," he said lightly. "You got a minute?" I almost laughed. "What do you want, Dad?" "We're having a family dinner Sunday. Your mother thought it'd be good to talk things out." I stared at the wall. "You mean the people who committed identity fraud and tried to sabotage my daughter's education?" He chuckled, annoyed. "Don't be dramatic, Brandy. It's just dinner." Against all logic, and maybe because part of me still clung to the idea of closure, Liam and I agreed to go. Sunday evening, we walked into my parents' house. Amanda sat at the head of the table like she was hosting a royal banquet, her boyfriend beside her like a hired bodyguard. My parents fluttered around with forced cheerfulness. Dinner was tense, fake smiles, awkward laughter, Ellie quietly picking at her food. Halfway through, Amanda stood and cleared her throat. "I just want to say how grateful I am," she began. "Mom. Dad, thank you for giving us the house. It means so much. And I know Brandy doesn't agree, but hopefully she'll understand." My fork froze. Liam whispered, "Brandy, don't." But I'd swallowed enough poison. "What exactly are you thanking them for?" I asked quietly. "For the fraud. For trying to throw us out of our own lives. For dragging a child into your lies." Amanda rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you're so dramatic." My father slammed his palm on the table. "That's enough." "No," I said, standing. "I'm done letting you rewrite reality." Amanda crossed her arms. "You're just jealous." Of what I said? Of never being enough? Of being the family's scapegoat while you were handed everything? "Tell me, Amanda, what exactly am I jealous of?" She laughed. "Well, clearly they chose the right daughter." Liam grabbed Ellie. "We're done," he said. We walked out without looking back. I thought that was the end. But 3 days later, another envelope arrived, this one from a law firm. My parents were suing us. For $50,000. For illegally occupying their property. A property we didn't live in. Liam dropped into a chair, the paper trembling in his hands. "They've lost their minds." I felt sick, not because I thought they'd win, but because this was war now. They weren't trying to steal a house. They were trying to erase me entirely. In the days that followed, the lawsuit, every hour, felt heavy, like waiting for a storm that had already begun, but pretending it hadn't. Liam and I spent evenings hunched over the dining table with our lawyer David, trying to figure out how to fight claims so absurd they felt unreal. But absurdity doesn't make something harmless. Absurdity can still destroy you. We gathered documents, mortgage records, utility bills, tax statements, all proving beyond any logic that we lived in our own home, not the one my parents claimed we were illegally occupying. Yet the lawsuit kept clawing at us, pulling energy and sleep away piece by piece. One night, while I sat on the couch sorting through files, Ellie climbed onto the rug beside me with her tablet, unusually quiet. She traced circles on the case with her fingertip before whispering, "Mommy, do you remember when we went to Grandma's house for dinner?" My chest tightened. "Yes, sweetheart. Why?" "I took a video. Can I show you?" I blinked, confused. "You did what?" She held the tablet up with both hands. I expected a blurry picture of Amanda's cat or a shaky shot of the ceiling. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't have imagined, was the audio of Amanda's smug voice echoing through my living room. "Thank you for giving us the house, even though we had to push her out a bit." My breath caught. Then my mother's laughter. It was overdue anyway. Then Amanda again scoffing, "Brandy doesn't even live there. She's just being difficult." The video wobbled, as 6-year-old hands had accidentally tilted the camera, but the audio was perfect, sharp, damning, irrefutable. Liam walked into the room mid-playback and froze. "Oh my God," he whispered. This is everything." I looked at Ellie, my sweet, observant little girl, her eyes wide and searching. "Did I do something bad?" she asked softly. I pulled her into my arms. "No, honey. You did something very, very brave." Liam grabbed his phone. "I'm sending this to David right now." Our lawyer watched the video and called us back within 10 minutes, his voice practically crackling with adrenaline. "This is a confession," he said. "A recorded, time-stamped confession. Brandy, you don't understand. This changes everything." For the first time in weeks, there was light. Not hope light. Something solid. Something real. The court date came fast. That morning, I couldn't get my hair to lie flat. My hands shook too much to eat. Liam helped Ellie tie her shoes, humming softly to keep her calm. As we walked into the courthouse, Ellie reached up and held my hand with both of hers, tiny but steady. Amanda was already there. Perfect manicured nails. A smug tilt to her chin. Her boyfriend sitting beside her like a bodyguard at a cheap nightclub. My parents sat stiffly behind her, refusing to look at us. When the judge entered, a woman in her 60s with eyes that missed nothing, I felt my pulse pounding in my throat. David presented the documentation first: mortgage statements, school records, utility bills, a decade's worth of evidence that we lived nowhere near my parents' house. Amanda's lawyer tried to object, tried to spin, tried to act like our paperwork was part of some elaborate plot. And then David said calmly, "Your Honor, we would like to present one more piece of evidence." The judge nodded. "Proceed." David pressed play. For 23 seconds, the courtroom air thickened. Amanda's voice filled the silent space between us like poison being released into clear water, even though we had to push her out a bit. My mother's laugh. It was overdue anyway. The judge leaned forward. Amanda went pale, ghostly. Sickly pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. My father's shoulders slumped. My mother stared at the floor face stone hard, but her hands trembled. When the video ended, the judge closed her folder slowly and looked directly at Amanda. "Ms. Brewer," she said in a voice sharpened by disappointment, "would you like to explain this?" Amanda stammered. That was taken out of context. Context, the judge repeated, implies it can be interpreted another way. I see no such possibility. Her gavel tapped lightly, a sound that felt like the universe exhaling. "This case is dismissed pending my formal written ruling. We will reconvene only if necessary." Amanda looked like she'd swallowed glass. But the real surprise came as we were packing up our things to leave. Ellie tugged at David's sleeve. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Can I show the judge something?" My heart leapt into my throat. David looked at us, then nodded, kneeling beside her. "What do you want to show her, sweetheart?" "The video," Ellie whispered. "But I want her to know I didn't lie." My vision blurred, tears instantly filling my eyes. David guided her carefully. The judge listened patiently as Ellie explained, in her small, trembling voice, how she'd recorded it, because everyone was talking loudly and she wanted to remember what they said. At the end, the judge gave her a warm, heavy look, the kind that says, "I see you and you are safe now." "Thank you," she said gently. "You were very brave today." As we stepped out of the courtroom into the sunlight, Ellie clung to Liam's hand, swinging her arm with surprising lightness. I took a deep breath, a full one for the first time in weeks. For a moment, I believed the nightmare was over. But I was wrong, because people like Amanda don't crumble quietly. They explode, and some explosions take time to reach you. And hers was already on the way. I truly believed the nightmare was winding down. After the first lawsuit collapsed under the weight of Ellie's video, I thought maybe, just maybe, the truth had finally won. I thought my parents and Amanda would slink back into their lives and leave us alone. But people like Amanda don't retreat when they're wrong. They double down. Then they strike harder. It happened on a quiet Wednesday morning. I opened the mailbox, expecting bills ads, maybe a package I'd forgotten I ordered. Instead, there was a thick envelope stamped with a law firm's name. My stomach dropped the moment I slid my finger under the seal. Amanda was suing us again. This time, the accusations were blisteringly personal, fabricating evidence, altering the video, coercing my 6-year-old daughter into false testimony. She claimed Liam and I manipulated Ellie to frame her. My hands shook as I read the words over and over until they blurred. When Liam came downstairs, he found me gripping the counter, breath uneven. "What happened?" he asked. I handed him the papers. Watching the fury rise in his eyes felt like watching a storm gather in real time. "She's accusing our daughter," he said slowly, voice low, with disbelief. The moment he said it aloud, something inside me hardened. A quiet click, a resolve locking into place. "She's not trying to win," I whispered. "She's trying to destroy us." "And she's not touching our daughter," he said, jaw clenched. This is where we stop being defensive. For the first time since this began, I felt it too, not fear, not desperation, but a cold determination I'd never known I had. Amanda wanted a war, then she'd get one on the one battlefield she couldn't control, the truth. We called David immediately. He sounded almost unsurprised. "This is classic escalation," he said. "When people like your sister lose power, they manufacture bigger lies." But she slipped this time. "How?" I asked. "By accusing you of fraud, she opened herself up to countersuits, harassment, perjury, emotional damage to a minor." He paused. "If you want to go after her, really go after her, we can." Liam didn't wait for me to answer. "We do," he said. And I nodded, because after everything, what they'd done to us, what they'd done to Ellie, this wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about breaking a cycle that should have broken decades ago. David brought in a forensic analyst the next day. Curtis was older, with a librarian's softness and the sharpest technical mind I'd ever seen. He examined Ellie's video with the kind of reverence one might give an artifact. It's clean, he said, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. Absolutely untouched. No edits, no splicing, correct compression artifacts. Timestamps and GPS data intact, recorded precisely where and when you said it was. I blinked. GPS data. He nodded. Every recording device embeds tiny digital fingerprints. Your parents' house has a unique coordinate signature. This video matches it perfectly. In other words, Amanda had just accused a piece of evidence that was scientifically undeniable. While Curtis worked on his report, I started digging into something that had been gnawing at me ever since Amanda insisted she needed the house. Why was she so desperate? Public records answered that question in 3 minutes. My parents had refinanced the house a month after transferring it to Amanda. Not for a small amount, for $180,000, and there was no trace of the money. Not in savings, not in renovations, not in investments. But there were clues, thousands of dollars in purchases. Amanda had flaunted. Online salon packages, designer clothes, a new SUV, even a weekend spa trip labeled Family Drama Recovery. Liam looked over my shoulder at the record's eyebrows raised. If Amanda defaults, and she will, the bank goes after your parents, he said. They're drowning under a loan they took out to keep her afloat. And if she loses this case, I murmured, that house she's fighting for isn't going to belong to anyone. It'll be gone. Amanda wasn't fighting me. She was fighting the consequences she'd created. She was clawing at a lie collapsing under its own weight. And she was willing to drag us and Ellie down with her. Speaking of Ellie, the stress was beginning to show in ways I hadn't expected. One night as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered. "No, baby. Why would you think that?" Because Amanda said I lied, but I didn't lie. I pulled her close, breathing her in, wishing I could absorb her fear the way she absorbed my warmth. You were truthful. You were brave. None of this is your fault. But she didn't look convinced. She curled against me that night, her small fist clutching my shirt like an anchor. It took hours for her breathing to even out. That was when I knew the real damage wasn't happening in courtrooms or mailboxes. It was happening inside a child who hadn't asked for any of this. The next morning, I walked into David's office with a new kind of fire inside me. "No more mercy," I said. "No more letting things slide. We end this." He smiled, not pleasantly, but knowingly. He'd seen this transformation before. The girl who once swallowed her pain was gone. The woman standing in front of him wasn't afraid to fight. We assembled everything, old emails from my mother, urging me to take the fall to spare Amanda's feelings texts, where my concerns were dismissed, or twisted documentation of every manipulative pattern that had been normalized for decades. Our therapist provided a written statement explaining the psychological damage Ellie had experienced as a result of the false accusations and chaotic family pressure. It wasn't just a legal case now. It had become a documented history of generational harm. And then the unexpected happened. David received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He put it on speaker. Brandy Brewer, the voice was hesitant male. "Yes, this is Nathan, Amanda's ex-boyfriend." I stiffened. He continued, "I know what she's doing. She lied to a lot of people about you, about your family, about debts, about who's really been hurting who. If you need me to testify, I will. I have messages, screenshots, all of it. I'm done protecting her." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. "Thank you," I said. But inside a different thought rose. This ends now. The night before the next hearing, I stood in front of our cafe, Third Place, watching the last of the customers leave. The horizon glowed orange as the sun dipped low. Inside, Liam wiped down tables, while Ellie drew chalk butterflies outside. For a moment, our world felt untouched by everything happening outside it. Liam stepped beside me, hand warm on my back. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we finish this." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I wasn't walking into that courtroom as the girl who left home at 18, scared and invisible. I was walking in as a woman who'd built a life, a family, a future. And I was going to protect it. The morning of the hearing felt unreal, like waking up inside the last act of a movie you didn't audition for. I'd imagined facing Amanda in court plenty of times, but never with this kind of clarity. Never with this kind of steadiness in my chest. Liam held my hand as we walked inside. Ellie clutched her stuffed fox. "Judge Foxy," she said, because he helped her feel brave. The courthouse smelled like cold air and old carpet, a scent that somehow made everything sharper. Amanda was already there. She wore all white blazer slack shoes, as if innocence could be purchased by the outfit. Her hair was perfectly smoothed, her makeup flawless, her expression a mask designed to manipulate every gaze that landed on her. Her new attorney sat beside her, a man in a polished navy suit who clearly had no idea the mountain of rot he was sitting next to. My parents weren't there this time. David had told us their own legal problems were catching up with them. Refinancing the house, missed payments, consequences they never imagined would land at their feet. The judge entered a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes like precision glass. She had seen everything, believed nothing without proof, and carried an aura that made the entire courtroom straighten at once. Amanda's attorney launched into an opening statement dripping with false sympathy. Your Honor, my client is a victim of a malicious campaign, a grieving daughter, a vulnerable woman who has suffered emotionally due to fabricated evidence and coercion of a minor. The judge held up a hand. Counselor, we will address these claims with evidence, not emotional embellishment. David hid a smirk behind his notes. Then everything began. We started with Curtis, the forensic expert. He approached the stand with the calmness of a man assembling a desk lamp, not destroying a family member's entire strategy. The video, he said, adjusting his glasses, is authentic. Amanda's attorney tried to object, tried to question him, tried to imply he was biased. Curtis didn't flinch. I have authenticated hundreds of digital files for federal and criminal cases. This video contains natural compression signatures, continuous audio, matching metadata, and GPS coordinates, placing the device exactly where the defendant claims it was recorded. Any accusation of tampering is baseless and unsupported. The judge nodded once. Noted. Amanda shifted suddenly, her jaw tight, her posture rigid. Her mask wasn't cracking, it was shattering. Right there on the courtroom floor. Next was Amanda herself. She walked to the stand with a theatrical sigh, placing her hands gently in her lap like she was posing for a portrait titled, Wounded Innocent Number 3. David let her speak. And she did. In circles, in contradictions, in half-truths tangled with delusions. She claimed she never said anything about pushing me out, claimed the audio was edited, claimed Ellie had misunderstood, claimed Liam and I pressured our daughter. She's a child, Amanda said dramatically. Children misremember things. They make up stories. The judge's eyebrows rose. Ms. Brewer, are you stating that the child fabricated a conversation that aligns perfectly with authenticated video evidence? Amanda swallowed. I'm saying she was influenced. By the time she stepped down, even her own attorney looked exhausted. David rose slowly, almost gently, like a man about to make a precise incision. He handed the judge a printed email. Your Honor, this is correspondence from 8 years ago, written by the parents of Ms. Brewer and the defendant. The judge scanned it. Her expression hardened. This email instructs Ms. Brewer to take responsibility for a hit and run caused by the defendant, David explained. It is one of many documented examples where blame and consequences were shifted onto my client to protect her younger sister. He continued, a consistent pattern of manipulation, entitlement, and coercion emerges across years. The accusations before this court are not isolated incidents. They reflect a long-established family dynamic that has been harmful to my client and now to her child. Each word landed like a stone in water, spreading ripples that reached every corner of the room. Amanda looked like she'd been slapped. Then came the final blow. Nathan, the ex-boyfriend, walked in. Amanda froze. He testified calmly about her behavior. Lying, financial manipulation, framing others to get sympathy, debt left in his name, threats, guilt trips, tantrums wrapped in faux fragility. I believed her, he said quietly, until I saw the video. Then I knew she'd been lying about everything. David didn't even need to cross-examine. Truth does its own work. When all sides rested, the judge took a long moment before speaking. This court, she said, voice steady as stone, finds the plaintiff's claims unsupported, contradictory, and malicious in nature. Amanda's face drained of color. Not only is the case dismissed with prejudice, the judge continued, but the court will be imposing sanctions for reckless use of the judicial system, defamation, and emotional harm directed toward a minor. My breath caught. Liam's hand closed around mine. Ellie squeezed my arm with Judge Foxy and whispered, Did we do good, Mommy? I didn't trust myself to answer yet. The judge wasn't finished. I am also forwarding this case to Child Protective Services for review, due to the nature of the allegations involving the child and the plaintiff's attempt to weaponize her. Amanda's mouth opened, no sound came out. Repercussions were no longer abstract. They were real, immediate, crushing. Within 2 weeks, everything spiraled. Amanda lost her part-time job. The SUV she flaunted online was repossessed. Her lease application for a new condo was revoked after the background check flagged the lawsuit and sanctions. And when she tried to move back in with my parents, they said no, because the bank had already initiated foreclosure. They were drowning in the debt Amanda helped them create. The house she fought to steal from me. The symbol she tore our family apart for. It would never belong to her, or to anyone in our bloodline again. It would be sold to strangers. Amanda had destroyed her world brick by brick, and now the final brick was falling. Not because of revenge, not because of vengeance. Because truth once spoken out loud does not return quietly to its cage. One evening after the dust settled, Ellie crawled onto my lap with her fox and asked, "Mommy, did we win?" I brushed her hair back. "We told the truth," I said softly. "And the truth won. That's what matters." She smiled small and satisfied before running to draw another rainbow on the cafe sidewalk outside. I watched her go, with a heart both heavy and light. This wasn't the ending I'd ever wanted for my family, but it was the ending we needed. And for the first time in my life, the weight I'd carried since childhood, the weight of being the forgotten daughter, finally lifted. After the ruling, the world didn't change all at once. There was no triumphant music, no confetti falling from the ceiling, no dramatic collapse of villains begging for forgiveness. Real life doesn't give you finales that clean. Instead, what followed was a slow unwinding, like watching a tangled rope finally loosen after years of strain. One knot at a time. The first unraveling was Amanda. The video, now part of public record because of her own accusations, spread quietly through the background checks of anyone who considered hiring her. It wasn't viral, this wasn't the internet. It was worse. It was official, permanent, searchable. A digital mirror she could never smash. Her job at the community center let her go within days. Liability concerns, they said, though. She framed it online as office politics and unfair targeting. Liam showed me the post on his phone. I barely reacted. I no longer felt the urge to defend myself against her fantasies. She wasn't my responsibility anymore. Then came the inevitable, the SUV. I watched from our driveway one morning as a tow truck carried away the gleaming vehicle she'd bragged about for months. I wasn't gloating, just observing. It was like seeing a symbol dissolve into reality. Meanwhile, the foreclosure notice hit my parents harder than anything. The loan they'd taken to keep Amanda afloat had ballooned. Interest, late fees, penalties. My mother once told me she knew how to handle finances, but you can't out-manipulate math. The house she adored, the house she weaponized, was slipping out of her hands. The place where all our childhood memories lived. The place where she ignored me so she could worship Amanda. Strangers would soon walk through its rooms, paint over the walls, pull up carpets that had absorbed decades of secrets. It hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted the house, God, no, but because it was proof that every lie they built was supported by rotting beams. And now the beams were snapping. Liam tried to console me one night as we sat on the porch steps. The late summer air was warm, carrying the soft buzz of insects and the distant laughter of neighborhood kids. "You're allowed to feel sad," he murmured. I shook my head. "I don't want the house. I never did." "That's not what I mean," he said gently. "You're grieving the idea of a family you never had." He was right. I wasn't mourning the loss of a building. I was mourning the truth that there had never been a place for me in it. Still, life outside that collapsing world grew brighter. Our cafe, Third Place, became a small, local haven. People lingered longer, chatted more, returned with friends. Our Saturday morning rushes grew so busy that Liam joked we needed a traffic light inside. Ellie blossomed through it all. Therapy helped her untangle the fear Amanda had planted. She drew pictures of rainbows, foxes, and our little family standing under the sun. She taped them to the cafe chalkboard wall, signing each one with a big, loopy E. Then something unexpected happened. A woman walked into the cafe one afternoon while I was wiping down the counter. She had brown hair tucked into a loose ponytail and eyes that darted around like she wasn't sure she should be there. When she reached the front, she ordered a latte. But instead of leaving, she lingered, watching me, studying me. Finally, she stepped closer. "You're Brandy. Brewer, right?" I tensed. "Yes. I'm, Nathan's sister." My breath caught. Amanda's ex-boyfriend, Nathan, the one who testified, had a sister. She offered a small, apologetic smile. He told our family some things. For years, we believed him because he believed her, and she was very convincing. But then I saw the video, the real one. I didn't speak, didn't breathe. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she continued quietly, "for believing lies about you, for ever thinking you were the problem. You didn't deserve any of this." There was a softness in her voice, an honesty I wasn't used to receiving from anyone connected to Amanda's orbit. Before I could respond, she smiled faintly and added, I'm glad you got out. You seem happy. Then she picked up her drink and walked out, leaving warm coffee steam and a strange feeling in my chest. Closure, maybe, or something close to it. Months passed, and with each one, the weight on my shoulders loosened. Ellie started first grade and came home every day with stories about her new best friends Dahlia and Harper. Liam bought the fancy espresso machine he'd been drooling over for years. I caught myself laughing more, sleeping better, feeling lighter. Not because Amanda suffered, but because I finally understood something. I had stepped out of the story that was never written for me. A story of favoritism, manipulation, and denial. A story I spent my entire childhood trying to rewrite from the inside. I was free now. Free to build a life my parents had never imagined for me. Free to raise my daughter without the chains of generational trauma. Free to choose peace over pain. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and painted the sky with soft pink, Ellie tugged my sleeve and asked, "Mommy, can we draw a rainbow on the sidewalk?" I smiled, of course. As she knelt down with her chalk humming to herself, I looked at our cafe, our homegrown dream glowing with warm lights and soft laughter drifting through the windows. I thought about everything we'd survived, everything we'd built, everything we refused to let break us. And I realized the house Amanda destroyed her life trying to claim was never meant to be my inheritance. This Liam, Ellie, our cafe, our peace, our truth. This was my real inheritance. The one I chose, the one I earned, the one no one could ever take from me. Time has a strange way of softening the edges of the past, not erasing them, never erasing them, but smoothing them until they no longer cut you every time you breathe. In the months after the foreclosure, after the sanctions, after the final hearing that slammed the door shut on Amanda's games life didn't just return to normal. It grew. It stretched. It blossomed. Third place. Our cafe, our fragile dream, born out of desperation, became something more than we ever imagined. People came not just for coffee, but for comfort, for conversation, for a moment of rest in a chaotic world. We hosted open mic nights, children's art hours, late evening book clubs. Ellie claimed the chalkboard wall as her personal exhibition space. Customers began asking for updates whenever she erased a drawing to make room for a new one. Liam and I found ourselves smiling more, touching more, dreaming more. It wasn't that the past disappeared, no. Trauma has a long half-life, but its grip loosened. Sometimes I'd find myself awake at night, staring at the ceiling, remembering the girl I used to be. The one who tried for 18 years to earn a kind word from parents who never intended to give her one. The one who learned to survive by shrinking herself. I wish I could hug that girl. Tell her she'd grow into a woman capable of building a world bigger than her pain. Tell her that someday she'd stand in the ruins of her family's lies and feel no fear, only freedom. One chilly morning, months later, Ellie and I stepped outside to open the cafe. She held her little fox in one hand and my fingers in the other. I unlocked the door while she skipped ahead. "Mommy," she asked as she twirled around, "do we still have to go to court ever again?" I kneeled to zip her jacket. "No, honey, we don't. Because the judge said Amanda was lying." "Yes," I whispered, "because the truth won." She nodded thoughtfully like she was absorbing a lesson bigger than her 6-year-old world. Then she tilted her head. "Is telling the truth always enough?" I paused. Children see more than we think. They sense fractures. They understand betrayal long before they have the words for it. I brushed a curl behind her ear. "The truth isn't always easy," I said. "Sometimes people get angry when you tell it. Sometimes they hurt you for saying it. But yes, the truth is always enough. Even when people don't like it, it still wins in the end." Ellie considered this, then smiled. "Good, because I like telling the truth." And in that moment, I felt something release inside me, something I hadn't even realized was still clenched. Later that afternoon, while Liam prepared cappuccinos and I restocked the pastry case, a familiar figure appeared at the door. It was my father. Not my mother, not Amanda. Just him. His shoulders were hunched hands in the pockets of a worn jacket. He looked older, tired in a way I'd never seen. When our eyes met through the glass, his expression faltered. Liam stiffened beside me. "What do you want?" he murmured. I didn't know. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. My father stepped inside, quietly glancing around the cafe as though it were a museum. His voice cracked as he spoke. "This is nice," he said. "You've built something real." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't owe him anything anymore. Silence wasn't weakness now. It was choice. He swallowed hard. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry." Those words should have hit like rain in a drought, but they didn't. They just settled soft and uncertain like dust on a surface long untouched. I finally asked, "Sorry for what?" He hesitated, a long, heavy moment. "For not seeing you," he said. "For letting your mother decide everything. For letting Amanda become what she is." His voice broke. I thought I was protecting the family. I didn't see what I was destroying. The younger version of me would have taken that as a victory, would have clung to those words like lifelines. But the woman standing behind the counter, she felt nothing but distance. "I hope I said carefully that someday you understand the cost of what you allowed. But forgiveness isn't owed, and it isn't ready." He nodded slowly. "I understand." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "You made a good life, Brandy," he whispered. "Better than anything we ever gave you." And then he walked away out of the cafe, out of the story, out of the last thread, tying me to the home that never loved me back. That night, as I locked the cafe and watched Ellie draw swirls of pastel chalk across the sidewalk, Liam wrapped his arms around me from behind. "You okay?" he murmured. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his chest, the steadiness of his breath. "Yeah," I said, and for the first time I meant it. Ellie ran up to us, holding a new drawing, 3 figures under a giant sun, holding hands. "Look," she beamed. "It's us, our family. Our family. Not the one I was born into, the one I built, the one I protected, the one I chose." I hung her drawing inside the cafe the next morning, right above the chalkboard wall where all her creations lived. Customers pointed it out all day, smiling at the bright little sun she'd drawn above our heads. The sun we never had back then, the sun we grew ourselves. Every story has a turning point. Every life has a moment where the path splits. Mine happened the day I realized I didn't have to stay in the darkness someone else handed me. I could choose the light. I could build it. I could pass it on. And I did.